desk computer. Well, this is Maggie Miller, and I'm here with Jonathan Rosenblum. Jonathan is a brother of my friend Miriam, and he lives in Seattle, and he's a union organizer and writer. And their mom has recently been scammed. And so what we're going to do is have a conversation, just about 20 minutes or so. Jonathan's going to start by talking about some general principles. And then I'll ask him what steps he recommends taking when there's been a scam. And then I'll ask Jonathan to talk about the broader perspective of this kind of situation. So with that, Jonathan, thank you for having this conversation with me. And so, yes, please share the general principles that you have in mind about this.
Yeah, thanks, Maggie, and really appreciate being able to talk to you and to be with your viewers today. I'm not an expert in this, but we sort of all in our family had to become experts pretty quickly with a recent experience where our mom got scammed. It was actually the second time in the last few years that it happened. It was a fairly sophisticated effort, and I think we were fairly successful in managing the crisis with a lot of help from our mom. The first thing I think to bear in mind is that scams happen to everyone. I mean, it's happened to me as well. And after what happened to my mom, this was 2 months ago, I started talking to friends about it. And these are younger friends in their 20s and 30s and 40s. And every single one of them said they had either been scammed or someone had attempted to scam them. And several of them said they actually had lost money. And so I think we have to remember that this is not a problem that is unique to people who are elderly or vulnerable, but unfortunately happens to everyone in society. And if you've been scammed, you should know that you're not alone. And there's unfortunately a lot of other people who have been scammed, and and there's a lot of people that help support you. The second thing to remember is that while this is a complex problem, sort of untying the knot of having been scammed and changing your bank accounts and so on, um, you can manage it if you break the tasks down into manageable steps. Put together lists and so on, and we can talk about that in a moment. That big problems get managed by breaking it down into manageable pieces. And the third thing is to emerge from the crisis by creating checks, a second set of eyes on financial transactions. If you think something is awry and you're an elderly parent, talk to your children or talk to a support person in the community whom you trust before you click yes on the computer or agree to send money or anything like that. I know in our own household, I certainly, talk to my wife before we write checks and pay bills, and so it's not you're not creating a sort of dependency for an elderly parent by saying, "Oh, you need to talk to somebody else before you spend this money or pay these bills." You're simply creating the sort of checks and balances that practically every household should have. I would say also, finally, it's important for children of elderly parents to bear this in mind that when they are scammed, your mom or dad are dealing with two problems. One is the practical loss of money as a result of the scam, and that's very real and tangible and can hurt them. But two, they're also suffering the emotional trauma, the embarrassment, the shame of having been scammed. And layered on top of that is the fear that you, their child, will take away their autonomy and control. And there are times when you do need to take greater trusteeship or control of your parents' finances, but that should really be a last resort, not a first step. And for my peers who have elderly parents, I would urge you to bear those two things in mind. That as you deal with the practical management of this, of undoing the scam, you also have to be open to and alive to the emotional trauma that your parent is facing, and you have to be empathetic and and support them through this process, not create a sort of an oppositional relationship.
I am so glad that I so appreciate all those four basic foundational points. And the last one, that's what I work with my clients on so much. So thank you very much for bringing that one up, especially. I think next you're going to talk about what specific steps would you recommend for people once there's been a scam?
Yeah, I would say in, in general, if you are facing a scam, you want to create a comprehensive list of what's the worst possible scenario, and what steps do we need to take. But then be very thoughtful and consult with, elder law attorneys or other people to figure out what exactly you need to do, because it may be that you don't need to do every single step. But when our mom was scammed, what we did first of all is we worked with her to make a list of all accounts that may be vulnerable: bank or credit union accounts, pension or 401(k) accounts, utilities, credit cards, and so on. Um, and then we did consult with an elder law attorney, and determined what we needed to do and what we probably did not need to do. Um, we did get new credit card numbers, and I think that's something that is fairly easy to do. Um, if the scam has happened through your computer, you're probably going to want to have your computer wiped for viruses and malware. Um, and and you may want to, if the scam came through the phone system, you may want to consider changing your phone number and or setting up a generic voicemail, because a lot of these scammers prey on people when they know they're calling the number of an elderly person. Um, Make a list of all recurring payments from bank accounts or credit cards. Figure out, who's your parent paying through some sort of auto payment system. And to the extent possible, go in and change all the passwords. And certainly, if you're getting new credit cards or a new bank account, you're going to need to do that anyway. And this is where we sort of run into the complexity of today's world, where when you want to go into one of these accounts, oftentimes they ask for two-factor authentication or other verification that you are who you are. These are good security measures, but they're very difficult for me to figure out sometimes. And so they're going to be even more difficult for people who are elderly to figure out. And I was fortunate to be able to take a couple of days off from work to be able to go and be with my mom so that I could actually do this side by side with her. And I think that is an important thing, if at all possible. Don't try to do this over the phone or over Zoom. Be with your parent, be at their side, be a support, and help them manage this labyrinth that we have in today's consumer world. Um, Continually remind your parent that it's going to be okay. Even if you lose money, that you're there to support them and you're going to manage this problem with them. And then coming out of it, this is very important. Set up a system with them that where they will consult with a trusted person, whether it's you or a friend or a social worker at the senior center, somebody, anytime that they get asked for money, or or somebody calls them who they don't know, anything that they're unsure about, just a second set of eyes, a second set of ears. And again, remind them this isn't being done because they are elderly. This is being done because of the world that we live in. And it's actually good practice for anybody at any age, to have a second set of eyes and ears anytime this happens. Unfortunately, scammers can be very sophisticated. They can impersonate police officers, bank officials, and so on. And so it's very easy to get scammed. And if you get scammed, it's not because you are stupid or vulnerable or anything. It's because they are malicious people out there, and they are taking advantage of your honesty and your trust. And that's why having a second set of eyes or ears is important when you encounter somebody who may be a scammer.
Thank you so much. Can I ask you a couple of follow-up questions?
Certainly.
So first, the point you made about two-step verification is so interesting. And it's actually not a question. It's just, I just want to acknowledge that myself because I work with my mom on a weekly basis over Zoom. And and sometimes I think about like if I have to step in, like I even if I know her sign in and her password because she shared them with me, then if I don't have her phone, that two-step verification. So now we have a shared Gmail account, but it's so complicated. And then some with her phone, there's facial recognition. And so I just want to acknowledge that things are very complicated. The second thing, I guess this is also a comment, is the point about generic voicemail. I never thought of that, and that is such a great idea. Um, the
That was my
third,
sister's idea, by the way. She has to
oh,
get credit for that.
oh, awesome,
Yes.
great. That's awesome. Um, I also want to say it is a lot of steps. I mean, hearing you describe it, it just sounds overwhelming. And so, to your general point about breaking it up into chunks, how did you, I mean, you were able to take time off work, but how did you just, I mean, did it feel just enormous to you when it happened?
It did. And when we had, probably 15 or 20 different things that we needed to do, whether changing a bank account or changing a credit card or changing a payment from a credit card. And, and I, and I think what we did is we listed everything. And then I said, let's do these five this morning, right? And not worry about doing it all. And then we're going to take a break and we're going to do something fun. And then we're going to do another five, so that you're not trying to do everything all at once.
Thank you. Yeah, that really helps sort of hearing that extra piece. And I heard loud and clear, like you were so clean about not shaming, not blaming. And that's valid because it really is the nature of society these days to be full of all that scamming. So it's really not about the person. And like you said, it could happen to anyone. Um, I think Miriam mentioned that there's this special kind of bank account that you got, and not every bank has it. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where like your mom's the owner, but
Right. We wanted to make sure that she maintained full ownership and control over her bank account, and yet there were another set of eyes. So there was an account that we found at another bank where I am the trustee, but it's her account. And if she wants money out of it, um, she needs to coordinate with me, but the two of us can very easily get money out, as much as she needs and when she needs it. Not every bank or credit union we found actually has these sort of products, and so you may have to shop around for the right sort of thing. I think for us, it was very important that it maintain as her account. This is her money. She's worked for decades to earn it, and and it needs to be accessible to her. And there needs to be a second set of eyes on transactions, and that's what we were able to accomplish.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. Um, all right, so those were my follow-up questions. So now I think I'm going to ask you to share your perspective on kind of the bigger picture of this kind of situation.
Yeah, I think I appreciate Maggie being given the opportunity to sort of talk about this as well, because I think it is important for people to remember. Again, this is not about you. It's about, unfortunately, the society that we're in and how society is set up. That we don't actually have true established security in the United States for our elderly and for vulnerable family members and friends. That Social Security is welcome but inadequate. Medicare has huge gaps and is being privatized year over year. Housing is almost an entirely privatized sector of the economy. Housing costs are going up and they can be precarious. And in fact, the capitalist system that we work and live under creates this precarity for our elderly by basically monetizing all these things that should be social goods. Because housing, food, and other needs are things that you have to purchase, the only way for an elderly person to manage with some level of comfort and security in their sunset years is to accumulate gobs of money in savings so that they can spend it down during their non-working years. And systems like Medicare are incredibly complex, as you and your viewers know. And all of this creates space and opportunity for scammers to sneak in and steal money from vulnerable people. So as we manage the, the actual practical challenges of dealing with scammers and cleaning up problems, repairing damage that does happen, in my view, we also have to advocate for and work toward a society in which healthcare, housing, and other basic social goods are seen as social goods and not things that you have to purchase. And for me, that means fighting for a socialist society, one where we don't have to worry about where our elderly and vulnerable parents are going to be, that they're going to be housed well, they're going to be fed, they're going to be getting the health care that they need, and that it's not dependent on how much savings they've accumulated, and they don't have to manage these sort of financial transactions, that these are social goods that are provided to them because that's what society exists for, is to care for one another.
Thank you. Thank you, Jonathan, for that. And it really does set the context for this more detailed conversation that we just had. And it occurs to me as people are watching this and thinking about this, yeah, there's whether they choose to engage in the fight to change society so that people can age and without this kind of fear that so many seniors in the United States are experiencing, as you said, and also that for them to be thinking critically, for viewers to be thinking critically about when they're dealing with this microcosmic problem between maybe that their own parents are experiencing it. It's in a context. It's in a context. It's not just about their mother or father making a mistake. There's a whole general context. So thank you for that.
Right. There
Yeah.
is no innate reason why healthcare should be something that you have to purchase, like you purchase cereal at the grocery store. Why shouldn't it be a social good? Certainly, we have the wealth in our society to be able to fund healthcare for all. And that's just one example. And so you're right, as we sort of manage the practical realities of scamming, we also have to look at the causal issues here and begin to work towards those in the long term.
Yeah. Thank you, Jonathan. Um, With that, I'm going to thank anybody who's
Uh,
watching for watching, and I will go ahead and stop the recording.
okay.